Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's edition of Beyond the Nourish, Beyond the. Really, summer solstice starting that way. I'm just in so many different places at once right now, but it's all landing like in this one heart-centered space because, well, it doesn't matter because it's going to be a powerful call tonight. And Steffi Funk is going to lead us into the topic of the power of the dark feminine. And it's not just the theoretical or what's coming up in the consciousness or perhaps some of that, but it comes from this embodied place of this place where she has experienced this portal. And we're going to get into the story of that, the wisdom that's come through, the strength and power that through her embodied experience, she is ripe to teach you how to access this place that perhaps has been elusive or misunderstood. And so to bring compassion, understanding, power, and innocence all to this conversation is just this can be a profound call, y'all. And so I invite you to sit back, open your heart, listen and integrate the story, prepare to be activated, and join us for this wonderful ride this evening. Steffie's bio is in the email we sent out. It's on the bottom of the special offer page we're going to share later. She's amazing. You're going to tap into your power. You can read it later. Steffie, welcome to the show. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Mm-hmm. So in your bullet points, you start the wild woman, the wise woman, the medicine woman, the witch. Tell us, start sharing with us what's been coming through with you.
Yeah, well, it's so interesting because our last call was on 11/11, and that was truly a portal for me. So I walked through that door, and it's a portal of ascension, right? But I had just been starting to dance with the dark feminine, and really, like, I could feel her, like, sort of, crooked witch's finger beckoning me down her sort of wild path. And it was like, what is that? I need to go there. And so much of my life has been lived from a very divine masculine place, right? A lot of ego masculine, but some truly divine masculine too, in terms of my ability to lead and my ability to protect and really hold space for other people's soul missions and such. But I was just, something new was coming. And I walked through that portal, the portal of ascension. And as the divine dark feminine will, she took me right the frick down. And so it was not a linear path from here to here. And I hate the even prepositions when we're talking about, it's just words, right? Words are the best we have when we're talking about these concepts, these energies. But her path was very different. And so she took me through this rewilding process down into a reclamation. And that rewilding through that reclamation was a very disorienting peeling back of layers where I almost didn't know who I was anymore. It was almost, the ego wanted to call it madness, but the force within me was like, this needs to go, this needs to go, this needs to go, this needs to go. And then finally, she's just recently been really powerfully leading me through this renaissance, stripped of all of that, those patterns that I'd been operating under, that after years in spirituality work, I didn't even know I was operating under. It was like next level transformation and transmutation. And so it's so beautiful now. Here we are, summer solstice, and I'm in my emergence, right? And this isn't a one-time deal, right? And a lot of you have probably gone through the dark feminine down without realizing that's what it was. But now when you understand what this is, and you're able to really be with it in a different way and truly surrender, the down is actually where you source power.
So what is the dark feminine down?
Okay. So the dark feminine down. So we typically live in a society that celebrates performative productivity, a society that asks us to always be on. Okay. And so many of us have lived like this and very successfully by societal standards, right? We just keep showing up. We keep showing up. We keep showing up. But the feminine down does call you into a space of letting go and releasing the performative. So the performative is very external. There's a place for the external. But the first place we need to go after being in the external is she's going to take us into this internal place
Mm,
where we're not going to be as productive by societal standards. And so a lot of what we use in our sort of defense strategies and coping mechanisms to like be successful in life, we have to let go of. But we're so uncomfortable doing this because it's become the way that we succeed, the way we survive, that most of us resist the down,
mm,
even though it's essential. And the down, ultimately, when you start peeling back the layers that she wants you to let go of. So I will tell you this, the feminine path is the path of loss, because the more comfortable we are with loss, the more power we have.
mm,
And so, but what she shows us is anything you lose in the down was not yours anyway. And who you had to be in relationship with it was so distorted that it was consuming cycles of energy that you really weren't available for. So it's this place of just kind of stripping oneself and saying, like, I need to go within and I'm going to be silent for a while. And I'm going to trust that when I go there and I'm really with like the process that she wants to take me into. And a lot of this is about revealing old trauma, old wounding, and in the patterning that we've developed. This is like literal energetic patterning we have in our bodies that was born of our trauma in childhood, which, by the way, we brought in from our past lives, right? And so we're bringing it in this sort of junk DNA, and it's this patterning that gets activated, reactivated in childhood, and it's trapped life force energy. It's frozen in these patterns, and these patterns act like magnets to call to us all the distorted illusion in the external, which is perfect, because those things trigger us. They trigger our patterns. And in the down, we're able to be present enough with ourselves that we can actually feel it, turn
mm.
toward it, hold it, touch it, breathe into it, and give it our awareness and compassion, which then frees the pattern layer by layer, which then becomes life liberated, life force energy
Yeah,
flowing cleanly through our system.
and I like the way that you not only talk about this, but the way that you explain it and teach it as well, because this isn't about a mental process. If I do this, I'm going to go here. It's about an experiential process. If you don't have the experience of it, you can't really be it and to get into it. And what you teach, and we'll get later into it in the special offer, but you talk about the three gates, and I have to mention them because they're so vital to me. And I've seen the events over the last 10 years. If you look at the Black Lives Matter movements, if you look at the transgender movements, if you look at all these different uproars that have come up where people are getting into their primal nature, their primal force, because something
Mm-hmm.
has rocked the comfort cart,
Yeah.
and go into that raw, rewild, that wild aspect of themselves, and then into the face. And I believe over the last couple of years, collectively, and probably for more people who are waking into it, we're still in the rewilding, reclamation phase. A lot of people are in it. And then the other side of this is what we've been talking about here on Beyond the Ordinary and lots of other platforms as well, is how we're stepping into a renaissance. And so you taking people into their individual journey of what's been happening collectively for us over the last, really specifically the last 10 years, those events have been preparing us of what we're shifting internally as individuals. So this is, you talking about this right now is evolutionary, really, because it's what we're awakening to, but it has to begin with us to, for the changes that we wish to see in the world to really take effect. And of course we want it to begin with us, because we have to, well, dang it, we just deserve to live that life free of the shackles that have been binding us for so long.
Yes. Yeah, you
So
got it.
it's an amazing process that you're taking us all through. So as we get into this, it's one of the topics that, again, has been so alive in so many communities also, is the topic about our nervous system and having to readjust in the vagus nerve and anxiety and depression and how we react. Talk to us more about what those definitions are for you, but the spiritual definitions, which is something that you really hone on.
Yeah, and I lived them. So
Yeah.
this is so key, because what I realized is that if you're not going through this down with some map that orients you, like where you are in the process and what's actually happening, the mind is going to freak out. It is terrifying, because what the down is really taking you to is your opening, right? The opening of like yourself with your channel, your higher self, to bring through that divine energy into the world. And the opening in terms of, birthing it, right? It's a reception, creation, opening. Well, a lot of us are very afraid of the opening, because what is the opening? I mean, think of it even in terms of childbirth, right? A woman spreads her legs, it's her opening, where it's vulnerable, it's exposed, it's raw. And because of what we've lived in childhood, we were open as children, and something nailed us, right? And so we slammed shut. And so to be able to be held through this process with a guide, and this, right? Like I imagine many of you are feeling this, right? You're like, God, I know exactly what she's talking about. But what it allows you to do when you have a map is to really surrender into the experience and not fight it. So what I did at first, I panicked. I was terrified of the opening. Are you kidding me? Many things happened in my childhood that I was wide open, and then I was like completely let down, abandoned, rejected, all the things. So this was terrifying for me. Like, she's like, come, like, be in your opening. And I was like, like I was like clawing my way, like almost like I was drowning, but the force was taking me down. And so what it was for me was the anxiety in general is one of three things. One, it's being terrified of the opening, of being open. Okay. So something's calling you there and you're like, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to go there. And let me say one other thing before I move on to the other two is the process to the opening is a layered process that shows up in life. So when something's ready to move, right? When a pattern is ready to integrate in the visceral body level, that frozen energy stuff, it starts to show up in the world a lot. Like you get triggered a lot, and that creates a lot of anxiety, because you're like, this isn't going the way I want it to. What's happening? Well, then beneath that, what happens? So you kind of work through that layer, then is anger, right? And there's this resistance and this fighting energy, and like it's anger. Then you're with that, when you turn toward that, right? And there's a process for all of this. When you turn toward that, you dip down into grief, the original grief, right? That's beneath this, that created the original pattern. And then right through that grief is a lot of times the deep fear. Now, this is not anxiety. This is like the really deep fear. When you're with that and you move through that, all of a sudden there's this like visceral movement in your body where it alchemizes, it transmutes, and that layer is integrated. You've freed that life force energy. So even that's a map within the greater map. Okay, right? Does that make sense? Like there's this.
I love this also because this also speaks to me about a different component of what some people would talk about the shamanic journey, where you're through those esoteric journeys or releasing part of the subconscious that have kept you stuck through soul retrieval, through receiving back, lost energy or power sources that come back into you. What you're talking about is similar to that, but this is integrating within the body and with the nervous system, and it's rewiring the physicality so that the responses become the optimal responses, not the ones that take you down, not the ones that are produced from trauma, whether in this lifetime or other lifetimes, or familial, ancestral trauma. You actually get to be with that esoteric journey in your body. And once you know and trust that you're safe through that and have that experience, it never has a grasp on you again the way that it did.
You got it. And the dark feminine is fully embodied,
Yeah,
right? And this the key here too is that you're doing it,
right.
right? There's not some guide or some guru or some
A
like
plant, right?
and
Yeah.
yes, outside of you, she's in you. You also hold the dark feminine, right? We all
Yeah.
hold both polarities. And so this is the dark feminine aspect. And it's like, you kind of have to be like, is she's not for the faint of heart. I will tell you that, right? There's a place in the journey where you really start to become like a steward of her energy.
Mm.
And um yeah, she's I don't know. I don't want to say like advanced because she'll
I
come for you whenever you're ready, but like but knowing this is what relieves the anxiety that comes of something. Essentially, John, is like anxiety is something you don't want to see. It's a pattern coming up that your brain is going, I don't want to see that. I've been trying to avoid that for however many years. Go ahead.
No, it's and I love where you're going with this. And yeah, for me, that anxiety, it's when we get to that point where we say no more.
Hmm.
And but it's deep within you no more, not like, oh, let me just relieve it a little bit. It's just the whole going into the essence and going, I
Hmm.
can't continue this way. And it's a calling. It's really an initiation. And we're going through a grand initiation. Your initiation, when you spoke on the last show on 11/11, and we laughed about, oh, this is a gateway. Um, little did you know what you were entering into, but you invoked it.
I did. And she was like, I'm going to really show you what I'm about. Like, because I'd had experience, but this was like next level,
Right.
right? So I could really teach it from an embodied place. And so one of the things you just sparked this in me is this work is very activating, right? Because the patterns, when they start to come up to be seen, when they're ready, they're like, there's some jitter. And so that is a lot of what the anxiety is what's happening. Now, if you have anxiety in your life, I would ask you to look at where are you out of alignment with what's true for you? Meaning, are you in a job that really isn't true for you? Are you, are you in a relationship that really isn't true for you? Because anxiety can be very helpful in that way too, to say, okay, it is time to go within because something's amiss here. And so, John, when you just use the word initiation, this
Mhm.
is so coming back to the nervous system, that this work is very activating. Now, activating in a polarity that's less, let's say, helpful, is where we actually move through the work too fast, which is, I'm guilty. I have a rusher part that just was like, I'm just going to let it all go, And then I was like, ah! So I was moving faster than my nervous system had the capacity to hold. I was like almost going too deep, too fast. And in that moment, I blew myself out,
Yeah.
really. And then I had to do some recovery to get myself back. And so I had to do some just grounding, almost like letting myself numb out a little bit to just come back and then retouch what was there. On the other hand, this work is very activating in that it is an initiation, right? It's activating in terms of like it is a true initiation into the next octave of
Yeah.
existence.
Yeah, and we're going to go deeper into this conversation, y'all, and go into some definitions and take some live Q&A. And again, we go into the special offer. It's what we're talking about here. And again, this initiation and this activation that's available now. And again, uh I cannot tell you how liberating it is because you can't really put words on it. It's an experience that you have to feel for yourself. And I've gone through a version of that activation and initiation, and it led into a ceremony that I'll talk about later in conjunction with Steffi. But what I want to reiterate is that why I'm so happy Steffi is offering this today here on Beyond the Ordinary is that you don't have to do this alone. You don't, and if someone's navigator, or you have a group of people who are navigating it together, it becomes exponentially more graceful. You learn only not to give compassion for yourself and to receive it, but to give it for others simultaneously. And the energy that builds from that, it lends itself to this power activating within you that has a buoyancy to land and stay in ways that when we go through it solo, it takes a lot longer for it to manifest. And then perhaps we glimpse it for a while until we can actually hold the energy of it. So we'll get into that offer later. But again, I love this, Steffi, because you're really teaching people that they don't have to do this by themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it, but you could. But it's much more challenging and terrifying. I will say, as a group, I've just been working with a number of people within my roar container, and they've all had just such expansive experiences, and we were like sort of all going through it together as I was kind of leading and experiencing at the same time. And there's just nothing like having a map, orientation, other people. So it's like, okay, is this normal? Is this normal? Is this normal? Yes. And what it does is it allows you to surrender to the experience that much faster. Faster is a weird word, but easier, right? More
Graceful.
effortless.
Yeah.
And there's not as much, it doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to be a suffering process. For me, the true definition of depression is when the feminine wants to take you down into that cycle of, hey, we're not going to be out here. We're coming in here, but we call that wrong,
Mm.
right? And we say there's something wrong here. That I'm not supposed to be feeling like I need a break, or I need some time to resource, or that I need to go feel my feelings,
Well,
right?
for me, this is also an experience into really expanding our sensuality
Yep.
and the vitality that brings in, because when you feel in such a broad range, the vitality that awakens within you, it's indescribable. Your senses, your empathy, your compassion, your sexuality, your relationship with nature, with food, it gets broader, and you wind up living like in a different layered existence of your same existence. But it's like you get to sense and feel in ways that we numbed up to because we had to, because it wasn't safe to open up to those expressions.
And what's interesting too, I had a lot of people pleasing tendencies in my past. I don't know, whatever version you were just talking about, right? It's a new version. In my past version, I had a lot of people pleasing tendencies, but wasn't even fully aware of them, right? Because like I worked through that, but I could only see it in retrospect. And right before she kind of called me into her portal, the dark feminine who is inside each of us, I got into major, like sort of like, I hope I can do this, but like this mode, right? Just
Yeah.
like my protector just came in, and there was almost a dark masculine that came in and said, she's closed for business, back off.
Mm.
And so I was real prickly in that phase because I could sense that I needed to feel safe to go where I needed to go. And so my dark feminine hired my dark masculine for that job. What I've noticed now, having been through it, through like truly it's just the depths, right? The shadows of my psyche, and like all that, really touching my own edges. I've I've emerged much softer, more
Mm.
tenderized,
Yeah.
And it's a genuine sense of closeness and compassion. It has no people pleasing energy in it. Is I'm just open, right? And so that's just a whole new way of being where I've integrated the power, but the power actually allows me to be more open.
Oh, we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, and perhaps after your special line, we're going to take 5 Q&A. So if y'all want to ask questions, raise your hand or type your questions into the chat box. Before we do any of that, Steffi, I think it'd be so beneficial for everybody listening or watching on the replay, that we talk about the ego and some of the hidden games that the ego plays to prevent us from really stepping into that power.
Yeah. And let me be clear too on the true definition of power. I mentioned it, but I might have glossed over it too quickly. So power gets really distorted in, again, today's society, and it gets a lot of ego masculine projected on it. But true power is actually through the dark feminine. And true power is when we are a clean and clear channel for life force energy, right? So the divine flows through us into the world through our embodiment in our creations, and then we open to receive. So it's like this, right? We're receiving and we're creating, receiving, creating. And this is true safety. Everything can go, but when you can receive and create, you have everything you need,
Yeah.
right? This is true power, and it's undistorted. And so back to your question, which was, why did I get on that topic? Oh,
Egos.
ego stuff, ego patterns, right? So all ego patterns are born of either a mistrust of the masculine or a mistrust of the feminine. So mistrust of the feminine is going to show up in what I call distorted masculine patterns. Those are things like, for example, perfectionism. Okay. Perfectionism is like, I can't trust my ability to receive. And so I need to like make it happen. Right. And so there's this way that but in the end, it's because we're afraid of the opening versus, let's see, a pattern of feminine that's afraid of the masculine is, for example, like my teacher calls it the swampy feminine. And so the swampy feminine is where like you just like you have maybe like you just can't get off the ground and create anything because you're afraid of like the structure and the power, the holding that's needed in order to be able to actually show up. Right. So it's sort of like, oh, I can't do that stuff. So I'm just going to like stay here and just stagnate in the swamp. And either way, what you're looking at is, in that case, it's an avoidance of power. So every distortion is either an avoidance of reception or an avoidance of power, born of mistrust of masculine or mistrust of feminine. So other ones would be like overachievement or people pleasing, right? Let's see what else is there.
Well, for me, part of the egoic complex that is being destroyed left and right now is the sense of what comfort means. And so we've been in this pattern where things are just good enough. As long as my cart doesn't get shaken too much, I won't want to change my reality. As long as I'm in this little safety nest, then being okay is okay. Thriving is something that's a little too scary to go, because that means I'm going to have to shift my foundations. And the foundations of the current collective are all being rattled. And so getting out of that paradigm
I think
and working with the ego in that aspect, it's a big part of the initiation that we're all being called to in one way or another right now.
yeah, what I hear you saying, what I think you're referring to is the difference between ego preference and what's true, right? So the feminine is always going to direct you towards what's true, and that's actually felt in the body. And we've all had those moments, those clicks, right? Those sort of like mic drops, those moments of like a thud where you're like, yes. And then the mind wants to go, what are you thinking? Da, 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 da. Or it says, I need it this way in order to, open, right? It feels entitled, or it feels ungrateful, or all these different things. And so what the feminine is really going to teach you to do is she's going to teach you how to feel what's true beyond any ego preference.
Yeah. And to give you a big example of that, imagine a man working for a big oil company and being a CEO and making decisions that is really causing destruction in the earth, all for the sake of equity, for shareholder stock rising, for all that. And as the feminine comes in and challenges that, it's like he can't make the same decisions from that same place. And consciousness gets brought into the ego structure of how those businesses are run. And so, for the sake of comfort, for the sake of the ego saying, this is what we have to build and hoard, or this is what we have to provide. And then the truth of the feminine say, no, this is what we have to do for the tribe, to nurture it, to allow it to grow, to allow it to sprout. Again, on a macro level, that's something that's happening to us in the micro level as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the feminine is all about that tending rather than running, right? It's a tending, it's a supporting, and I will say, little personal story on that. I can't get away with the things I used to be able to get away with. Like she will smack my ass so hard, so fast. I just can't. I literally can't live out of integrity anymore because I pay the price. And last summer when I was still in sort of that more people pleasing mode, someone invited me to do something and I was I I was a no, but I didn't fully get that I was a no. And there was just a couple convenience reasons I said yes. And then the event finally happened and it was a disaster. And it brought
I
through
remember that event. Yeah, I remember you sharing where you were going.
that was the massive cost of self-abandonment, and I learned the lesson hard. And she like cut me off at the knees, and she was like, it was like, you will get on your knees in devotion to what's true, and I was like, okay, I got it, and I needed that to wake me up.
You're a deep diver like I am, which is why I love talking to you, because we can carry these energies and we can get excited about going through those portals. It's like, oh, we're going into the shadow. Okay, cool. What's down there? And we've had relationship with it enough, and probably past life experiences to navigate so we can show others as well. And for you to be able to guide someone because of your comfort level of going there is tremendous. I want to share the exciting part for all of you. And I preface that because part of the exciting part for me is going through that dark side, going to and experiencing the full spectrum of what's available. Always knowing that love in all aspects always wins. It just does. So that is always my guiding light through all those experiences. But you don't have to get off on the same things that I do in those energies. What's on the other side of this, Steffi? What's the exciting part of what you discovered going through this transition?
Well, I mean, I'm so much lighter. Like the patterns that I was operating under that I didn't even know I was operating under because they were so unconscious. And then life herself as the teacher brought me exactly what I needed to show me what was there. And and for me to be able to turn towards that and really feel them and integrate them layer by layer. And this work is never done. I'm going to be totally honest. Like until you're like ascended off this planet, like we've got work to do. But you do get more proficient, more masterful at these cycles. So like you're able to kind of go down and up like really quick. But in this case, I was able to release so much patterning through the experiencing of the original wounding and trauma. I actually, in some ways, I shape shifted into my inner child over the last few months, and I lived out full on my abandonment wounding. And it was wow. And I finally had to get to a place of really big, deep approval for that girl, for that, all of the pain she had experienced and all the stuff. Well, when I did, that layer got integrated and it freed life force energy in me. So now not only am I lighter and devoid of the patterning that was built on her trying to protect herself, I'm also running a much cleaner system. And so my creation is like lit,
Mhm.
right? And my ability to receive and my ability to just, what I learned was my ability to be with everything, which is there any greater power than that?
Mm.
Like I am able to be with everything until she brings me to the next level and I'm like, okay, I'll learn that too. But
But you're more proficient at that next level.
yeah,
It's not like you're going from subtraction and addition to geometry. If you were to
exactly.
equate it to skill, it's different.
You become more masterful. And so you almost get to a point where this, I can only speak for myself. Now, when something goes, instead of like trying to hold on to it so hard, like I'm not ready to let that go, I'm almost like, because the dark feminine, what she does is she is here to pull up inside of us anything that's standing in the way of of little self and big self, so
Mm.
that we can have that sacred union within ourselves. And so she burns it up, right? She burns it up. And so now it's like if something goes, I'm almost like standing around the fire, just watching it burn and howling, like, woohoo, and I just like, I'm able to just celebrate it and in reverence, like burn baby burn, and then knowing that what's mine and what's for me is so unfuckwithably mine that it's not going anywhere. It's only when I'm in relationship with something that's not true that it needs to go away. So I build low to the ground, I feel really solid, and I'm able to just sort of merge with orgasmically with life, and like she just moves through me.
Right. And this is an experience that it sounds like we've been going through similar journeys during the same time period. And just to share with y'all, and some of y'all have heard this on the show who've been part of the membership community. But I think it's important to reiterate here because this is what you're bringing, Steffi, and it's so important. And it's this point where you get to this place of self-sovereignty and self-love that you realize that only source or God, for me, only God and myself are my source and my supply. Nothing outside of me is my source and my supply. I don't reach into that so I can source my self-worth, my abundance, my inner child being held. But from that knowing, everything that sources that abundance, that knowing, that being held, that belonging comes through me from the divine. It can show up in multiple ways, but it's not a particular thing. But this place of the expectation, well, if I give this, I'm going to get that. The transactions that you're talking about, they're very masculine and dominated. When I got to the point of that evolution and went into very dark journeys also, what evolved was a ceremony where I actually had to call a friend that I need you to hold space for me. And someone who's very energetically adapting can tune into that frequency that I was being called to hold. And I had to ask her to lead me in a ceremony where I married myself. And it's in that marriage to self, that commitment, that devotion to self. And it wasn't the words, it was the commitment, the energy of devotion to self. That these old structures fell apart, where I was sourcing my energy, my hopes, my expectations from others. I went through one day of mourning those things dying, and a new power arose within me. So we're birthing something through these energies and harnessing the power of our fear, of our anxiety, of our anger, of our primal force at the deeper recesses. It's what's
Mhm.
unshackling us from limitations that we've been in for so long. So this is profound for me, what you're
Mhm.
offering and how you're offering it, because you're making it very practical, accessible. So this is amazing. Steffi, I want to go into the special offer, and we're going to take Q&A again. We have some hands raised. If y'all want to ask individual questions, raise your hand. April has put in the link for Steffie's offer in the chat box. And Steffie, I'm actually guided to go to a couple questions first.
Okay.
Go into special offers. Does that sound good, or does the special offer sound, or do you want to go to special offer first?
I think questions, and I want to finish really quick with what you just shared, which is what's on the other side of this is such deep trust. Like trust at a core visceral level. And all of my patterning had been built on a mistrust of the adults in my life or whatever it was from my childhood, and that working through these patterns, alchemizing them, and then sort of living on the other side of that is just total trust, which there's just nothing for me, nothing sweeter, nothing more exhilarating.
Yeah, and there's like, you can breathe into that trust even as things unfold. It's like the financiers are down and someone's not showing up, but this happened. It's like,
It's just,
it's not only okay, it's like, I
it's
want
perfect.
resolving. Yeah, it's like, okay, thank you. Thank you for removing that, because something else wants my energy, my attention, my love.
Right.
Right, that's more direct and right here. So it's wonderful.
When we release perfectionism for the perfection of everything.
I love that. Oh, we're just having a conversation about that. This is so on point. All right, let's go to a couple callers again. If y'all want to ask questions, raise your hand. But Courtney, if you'll unmute yourself, please, and welcome.
Hi.
Hi, Courtney.
Thank you both. I can I can completely relate with what you've been sharing so much, like deeply, deeply, deeply. And I really appreciate knowing that I'm not the only one, and that that this is actually happening and it's glorious. My question is, when you just spoke of your inner child and the abandonment, it's like that seems to be like I'm breaking through in so many other layers in my life, deep into myself. Like the all of what you're saying, I'm living it and I feel it, and I'm doing the work for it because that's what I want. I'm standing by the fire too and howling like yes. And there's just that, I mean, the abandonment is like, I my dad moved away when I was young, and he's been away my whole life, and I fucking miss him. Excuse me for cussing. And
Too.
that,
No, there's you don't need to apologize for that. I love it.
okay.
Yeah.
And it's like he's still alive and we still talk on FaceTime, and I actually get to go visit him in like 7 days, and I haven't seen him for 9 years. But this is brilliant that it's happening right now that we're on this conversation, because how did you how did you go through what you needed to feel so that you could come out the other side without that wound?
Yeah. The first thing I will say is recognize that if it's still there, there's wisdom in it. Okay. You're just not, if we have to be ready to let go. And so there's an invitation I want to give you of what does it look like when you say, this is still here from a very wise place, and not resisting. I need to just bypass. Like what I hear is there's this part of you that wants to bypass that little girl and say, you should be over it already. We have things to do. And then what are you doing to that little girl? Abandoning her. Can you feel that?
Yes.
So the first step is approval for right where you are. Nothing needs to be any different than the way it is. This is your karmic work. And I don't mean karma from a ego masculine where we say we get punished for our bad deeds or whatever. Karmic means this is what's for you in this life. And so bravo, you're working through some really deep themes. This is your work. And so it's almost like this way where you want to say, oh, I'm supposed to be spiritually enlightened despite the fact that I have an abandonment wound. No, babe, it's right through it. It's right fucking through it. And so the key is the next time you feel it, where there's some pattern of behavior that you're exhibiting as your inner child, and you're like, why am I still behaving like this? I can't believe this. Stop and turn toward her Let the experience go and turn toward her. And the first step is to just say, I am here.
Mhm.
I am here. I am here. I've got you. I'm not going anywhere. I love you. And you are allowed.
Mm.
And give her a seat at the table. Yeah. And ask her and feel this. I want you to keep feeling this as we're talking. You don't need to just brush the emotion away, you know, but I'm going to keep talking. You just keep being with yourself, be with her, you know, and really say, you're allowed to come out of the closet now. I'm sorry that I've been trying to rush you. I'm here. What do you have to say, my darling? What do you have to share? And listen, just listen. And she may not be quick to share right away. You may need to establish that trust of turning toward with approval and compassion until she feels safe enough to tell you what she's really afraid of or what her deep grief is. And then you're going to hold her hand and you're going to let her know whatever she needed to hear back then that she didn't hear. And you're going to tell her. And you're going to let her crawl up into your lap and you're going to hold her and rock her. And then the next piece of that is to say, baby, you don't have to hold this by yourself anymore. I'm here to feel it with you. And then I want you to just drop into your body and feel where you feel that abandonment, you know? So it's like, where do you feel it? Where in your body do you feel it? And you don't have to answer this now for the sake of, you know, time and
Right.
such. It just, when you go back and have this ceremony with her, and it may be 100 times, as long as she needs to not feel abandoned, then you're going to just feel, where do you feel it in the body? What does it feel like? What is its texture? What is its weight? What is the sensation? And that thing, that's what you've been running from your whole life. And you're just going to let yourself all the way in and feel it. Give it space, give it permission, and know that it's what you're feeling is the frozen pattern. And the more you open to it and open to it with some breath, permission, you are allowed, it will start to move. And it may take some time, but just know that it will. And you're not doing it for it to move because that would be about.
Right.
You're just there to feel it and be with it fully as long as it takes in full approval. You let that little girl have whatever, you know, sometimes we just need to act out until we're done. And we do it for this because it's like that is the gateway into really feeling that original wound. And so thank you. Thank you, universe. Thank you, divine. Thank you, person that just pissed me off. Thank you, because this is allowing me to turn toward her and feel what's really there in titrated amounts. You don't have to go all in, right? Because that's where the nervous system can get real like, what? Just a little bit. And if you need to even take that little dimmer switch down on the sensation so that you can feel it and you can hold it, you do that. Okay? And you turn toward her and show her that you're not abandoning her. That's all she wants to know. Does that
Appreciate that.
does
Yeah, I
that
appreciate that and a lot. And it's great because so many of those things that you just shared, I've already been practicing, but those words like you are allowed and I'm sorry that I've been rushing you. Like that's what's cracking it open a little more. So I
Mhm.
really, really, really appreciate you.
Yep. And if you go to see your dad next week and it's not a perfect, glorious experience, recognize, like, thank you, Dad. Thank you for allowing me to see what's still there for me to turn toward again and again and again, as long as it takes, and to know that this is my work.
Mhm. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Courtney, I want to give you a little something just to carry it as far as the empowerment, because again, we grow up being afraid of our fear. And so just the mantra for you to hold in your power, not for avoidance, but to step into really the power of that darkness, which again, it's love. It's been interpreted as dark and we're supposed to avoid it, but the mantra is I'm not afraid of my fear. I'm not afraid of my fear. I allow fear to show me the truth. And in the truth, I am set free. And whenever your little one's ready to see, she'll open her eyes and you'll be holding her. And you won't be afraid of the fear anymore. You won't be afraid of the fear of feeling abandonment. Not that abandonment won't break your heart, but you won't be afraid of having a broken heart because you know there's something growing within you, and because you know that your love in that space is unshakable as you're devoted to yourself and your little one, and the compassion that grows from there for others only gets stronger because of your embodied experiences. And from that, you become an emanation of what you're wishing to attract into your life. Because as you heal yourself, you heal others as well. And so it's powerful what's coming through you. And like Rumi says, invite all those sorrows into your life and open doors, for they're all gifts sent from beyond. Yeah, invite it into your life. Blessings to you, Courtney. And
Thank you.
yeah, so beautiful.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to our next live caller, and then we'll get into the special offer, which I really am excited to bring to you guys here on BTO. And I want you to get a little more sense of what Steffie is leading through here. And Pierina, let's get you to unmute. It's always wonderful to have you on.
Hi, John. Thanks for calling on me.
Of course.
Yeah. Hi, Courtney. I don't even know where to begin. I feel like you've been speaking my path, going in and out of losing my power, gaining it, losing it. I feel like I'm in a freeze mode. And I just feel like I just want to walk away from discovering my gifts. Like, I just feel like the path is too long and I have other things to do in this lifetime. So I don't know what to, like, that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
echo there. Maybe mute me.
Let
or
me,
mute yourself.
I'll take care of it on this side and see if there's anything else open. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would honor the freeze. It's like that's where we go when so many teachings have said, oh, push through the resistance, right? If I'm resisting it, that must be for me. That is asinine. Resistance is there because there's something in us that feels protective. What's there to do is turn toward the resistance and say, what's here, right? What do you have to say, to really feel into what's the pattern behind the resistance, to meet the little girl that's beneath that. Not to just like override it and say, all right, I'll get back on the train when you're not really available for it. And the freeze, that's the fight or flight, like sympathetic response. So your nervous system got fried, girl. Like you were probably deep in it, holding way more than that you had the real nervous system capacity to hold. And like at the end, it just all shut down and it said, I am done with this. And so there's this way that you get to give yourself permission to be in the freeze response, to honor it as holy, as a protective mechanism that's kept you safe for many, many years. And then to just like do a lot of grounding, just really, and if you need to let yourself numb a little, that's okay too. It's okay. And it's almost like this is another part that just gets to have her way. She gets approval too. And through the freeze response, when you maybe start to do some grounding, just kind of like being really tender with yourself, just letting the feminine know, hey, I'm not here to like feel too much right now. I just want to feel some love and go slow. The key here is to slow way down. That's all there is to do. So you could still join Roar and just take it so slow and let it be a practice in what you're truly available for and in setting boundary with the energy. right? We don't have to just be like, fine, give me everything all at once. Like, we're allowed to say, I'll take a little bit, but I don't want a lot. And in fact, if you could just hold me for a while, that'd be great, you know?
Also,
So,
what comes through for me on this also for Piorina, because I know Piorina pretty well, is also going into the dark feminine, is because Piorina is like, it's the discovery of what are my gifts and how do I bring them out more and all that. In going into the darkness of the feminine, you just own your gifts, and it's not something outside of you that you chase. You build upon them. And so the gifts that you have that are right there in front of you, that I know so beautifully well through my experiences with you, are right there in front of you. But this whole masking, I've got to attain, I've got to get, I've got to accumulate, that's running, that is distorting, again, the essence, the beauty, the power of right's there. It reminds me of the alchemist, Pablo Coelho. If you just go back to the home and see what's underneath the house, you'll discover it was all there all along. And the slowing down that Steffie's talking about, I think is going to bring you to that home, to seeing the preciousness of what's there, and not to hold it in a way, well, I know it's precious, but nobody else sees it. But I know how precious it is, but nobody else sees it. But nobody else can see the brilliance, but it's all this. It's going to bring you into the home where it won't matter if nobody else sees it, but at the same time, they won't be able to help to see it because of the eminence of who you are. What were you going to say, Steffi?
yeah, thank you for that. I just want to finish with a couple last things. That's so great what you're sharing. And a big key in this is that when you know what you're moving through and you feel held in it, it's a much different experience than feeling like a loss of power, right? It's like the down has wisdom, and it's very it's very slow, it's very soft. And so I think part of what's been going on for you is that you've just been getting rocked, right? It's just, and you haven't really had like something to hold you through that process. So when you have that orientation and you're able to really surrender into it, it's actually quite pleasurable because it's all about desire. And what I will say, I love what John said, which is there's a difference between wanting to get it, like get my gifts, and settling into the process of opening to them, which is really about slowing down and letting that opening occur, through which what I'll tell you is that you can't not tap into your gifts in this lifetime. Like they haven't let you go yet. And you might, you might get a little tired and whatever, but trust that that life force energy is so in you that it can't not happen. So you don't have to try. You get to just release and open to it beginning to flow through you. It's just a completely different paradigm.
Thank you for calling in.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, Steph, I called you by the wrong name in the beginning.
Oh,
I apologize. I called you Courtney by mistake.
well, no, I thought that was sweet that you said hi to Courtney.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard Steffi also, so it was perfect. Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you.
All right, y'all, let's go to the special offer, really to get into the meat, so you guys can get the logical part of the brain of what you're opening up to as well. So y'all click on the special offer link. It's in the chat box. I'll type it in there one more time, just for redundancy's sake, because it's the masculine thing to do. But no, really click on the link in the chat box or open up a new page if you can't find the link, and you can type it in your browser, beyondtheordinaryshow.com/Courtney28. And it'll take you to that same special offer page. And I think this is so vital to the experiences of what we're all expanding into, and to be led in this way. It's going to be pretty life altering, I believe, for anybody who participates. So Steffi, lead us through this.
All right. Let me get it open. Okay, so this is my signature core program called Roar. And this is a 4-month program that is going to lead you through that map that I was talking about, of the rewilding, which is where you're going to really surrender to life as your teacher and like disrobe all of these shackles and patterns that have been keeping you stuck. And then into the reclamation where you really get into your body and you're able to feel what's true beneath the ego preferences, like John was talking about, and or beneath the ego judgments, right? Or fear beneath all of that. And then finally, it takes you into your rebirth, your ascent, where you're taking up space, you're fully expressed, you're internally validated rather than externally validated. You're living game free in your roar. And so I take you through 3 gates of the Holy Woman vow of inner devotion. So that rewilding phase is the unapologetic phase. The reclamation phase is the unbound phase. And then finally, that renaissance is the unfuckwithable phase. So what's included in the 4 months is a monthly live alchemy call with me. And so you bring your stuff, you literally bring life to the table and we work it through together, and you have shifts right there. And I do this in group by design, because one person's shift is another person's shift. When you just watch someone going through their stuff and their process, it opens something up in you, and vice versa. And it's really this group feel that has you feel like you're not alone, right? That we can all really understand what you're going through. It also includes a whole curriculum of core teaching transmissions. So these are video teachings for each gate, as well as embodiment processes and practices. We also have an active Holy Woman community where you're able to share what you're going through between the calls. And I offer you the shifts and adjustments that you need to see your blind spots so that you can continue to move through as life is showing herself to you. And I also do a shamanic limpia ceremony. These are recorded, but I also do them for every single month of the program so that you're able to do the ceremony before you move into the next gate. And I will say, I had a question that a man, I think it was Guy, asked, like, is this appropriate for men? And it is. And it's funny. One of the things I've noticed as I've been speaking more about the feminine is that men, not all, certainly not John, and there's been others, have been sort of getting like offended by the feminine and like, what do you got against, what do you have against guys? And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, this feminine is in you too, right? And every human on the planet has all of these energies inside of them. So what I will say is this is absolutely a container for any gender, because when I speak of masculine, feminine, I'm speaking of energies, not genders. Now I will say there's a lot of reference inside the program to she, and different, because this is just the easiest way to refer to the feminine in a lot of ways. So there will be, for any men who join the program, you do need to just sort of suspend your gender disbelief a little bit and open to these ideas as energies. And Guy already signed up. Welcome. This is going to be great for you. And yeah, just kind of keep that in mind. And where your mind wants to come in and say, well, I'm a man and this isn't for me, turn toward that. That's there's going to be something there's gold in that, and I'm not saying that will happen for you, but in the moments I've had men come to me and say, what do you have against the masculine? I'm like, sounds like you have some pattern work to do, my friend. Like, so anyway, it's perfect for you, Guy. Welcome. Really glad to work with you. What else? I think I'm complete there. It's 111 for 4 months. It's normally 111 per month. It's normally 444. So it's a significant savings. And if you feel the call into this work, the work has already begun, because there's an invitation for you to trust what you're feeling over what the mind may be telling you, right? So it's almost like to even walk through the portal of the first gate, there's an element of like really feeling if this is for you. And trusting that no matter what the mind wants to say, because that's the work.
And so these are monthly live alchemy calls.
Yes.
These are group calls, 4 in total.
Yes.
If you can't show up live, you'll get the replays. Always. You can get core teaching transmissions. embodiment processes. And those are so important for me, because if you can't embody it, you're going to hold it up here. And it's going to be something else to worry about, something else to think about, something to integrate. And while there can be opening in those, to go through the full alchemy really takes going into the body and having a visceral experience and activating the chemistry that then realigns the nervous system, that rewires the brain and the limiting beliefs into new potentials. And so it's so important for me. You have shamanic Olympia ceremonies in here. Describe a little bit about that for anybody who's not familiar with what that might entail and the benefits of it.
Yeah, so pertinent to each gate and the energy that I feel coming through around what the blockage, the group collective blockages are, and what's really what we need to call in at an essence level in order to kind of move into the next gate. There's a shamanic limpia ceremony, and it's something like a guided meditation, but I'm actually working with energy remotely and using shamanic song, Icaros, instruments, and energy work to sort of help alchemize some of those frozen blocked patterns that are so unconscious or so ancient that they just need a little extra help, so that you can feel really open to move into the next phase. So it's energy work, it's shamanic energy work.
I love it. It's so beautiful. And I love that energy work because it really facilitates an opening and a willingness to kind of put your feet into the fire, which this is what this is. Steffie, you teach like I do. And I want to read this part of Steffie's special offer, because this is how I present anything. And I haven't put things out in course material like this in a while. You'll have to read this. And this is just true. You have to want it. The work isn't easy. It's going to take you to your edges. And Steffie's not always going to be sweet and gentle. You're going to be dismantling games that you don't even know you're playing. And it can confront your ego. So just be prepared to show up for that. You have to. You have to. And it's just time. You know, it's just time to end the unconscious suffering for the sake of suffering, because we don't think that there's anything else possible, and there is. And so you get to see yourself and hold yourself in a new light, a new mirror. And in seeing yourself in that way, the things are going to shift. But again, you have to be willing. You have to be willing to show up. And so this is beautiful work. I'm excited for it. It's $111, y'all. There's a 2-payment option. This is typically $444. So again, to get this on BTO with Steffie in this way, it's one of the benefits of being in this community, or being in Steffie's community and listening to the show. I hope you all take advantage of it. And again, to do so, the link is in the chat box. Click on it, check it out. And when does the first course start? When's the first live call?
The calls are always the first Friday of the month. So it will be, I don't have my calendar up.
Friday, 4th, 5th, something like that.
Yeah. And I guess I just realized that's like kind of the holiday weekend, but I don't think it's on the 4th specifically, is it? I literally.
I'll tell you when it is. It is the first Friday is actually July 1st.
Perfect.
So there you go, July 1. What a great day to get ready to go. And I can't imagine. Hold on a second. I'm curious. The first Friday of the month is Friday the 5th, but what an amazing activations for the Lionsgate on August 8th also, to be in the energy and like what else is wanting to emanate through. This is exciting now. Again, the link's in the special offer. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I want to say, and the moment you sign up, you get access to all the teaching materials, transmissions. Like there is a lot to dig into even before we meet on the call, that you're going to be like so ready and primed for the call when it comes, because like the second you get in, like, it will blow your mind in the best possible way, because we know minds are overrated.
Yvonne just signed.
Helpful, but they're not masters.
Yvonne just signed up, and Courtney's asking how long the calls are.
They're usually 2 hours, but you know, attend for what you can. And if you have to drop early, there's always a recording. I don't put a time on it because I follow the energy. And so it's like whatever's true is what I'm there for. And so it may sometimes be less, it may sometimes be more, but I've noticed that they're typically about 2 hours.
Well, and it's not, I mean, we're on this call an hour and a half and it flies by like
I
it's,
know. I just was like, where did the time go? This is always,
so,
I get in a vortex with you, John.
well, and I know that's what it's like in your courses as well. So it's like in that space and holding that bubble, that container, the vortexual field that opens up potentiality in a group together is just powerful. And you hold that very precisely, very expansively, and very shamanically as well. Again, we have very similar energies in that. So that's wonderful. All right, y'all, the special offer link is in the chat box, or go to beyondtheordinaryshow.com/Courtney28. Courtney, and then there's some more questions coming in, and I'll get to those. You don't have to read those. Get off the questions. I'll stop. Lynn has a question. Lynn says that because of burnout, her nervous system got fried. She's going to an acupuncturist to open up the energy flow again. But I'd love it if you talk a little bit more into the burnout that people have been experiencing.
Yeah, and this is what happens when we hold more than we're really available for, whether that's in the external of like having to be on, the busy schedule. This is a big one. There's a difference between feminine integrity and masculine integrity. So masculine integrity says, well, if I said I would do something, then I have to do it, even if it's no longer true for me. Feminine integrity looks at, okay, if I said I would do something and now it's no longer true for me to do it, what would need to shift in order for this to be true? And so there may be, for example, like a cleanup that's needed, like, hey, I know I said I would do this and I own the impact on you of this, and I need to move it to this time, or this is what I'm available for, whatever. The point is it comes from overriding the feminine cycles. And when I say the feminine cycles at a macro level, I mean the natural down and the natural up. When you do that for so long, you are going to burn out. The nervous system isn't designed to always be on. And so that burnout that happens is a natural byproduct of going too fast or taking on too much or being in that sort of performative, gotta provide, gotta do the thing no matter what. So the key, as we talked about before with Purina, I think is her how you pronounce her name, is to just slow way down and to start to really listen to your body yeses and nos. And the yes, you can even feel it. We can do a little practice right here, right now. Everybody on the call, I want you to feel what a yes feels like in your body. So I won't take away your experience, but it probably feels open, expansive, alive, maybe a little scary, because a lot of times yeses push us just beyond, tingles, yes. Push us just beyond our comfort zone, right? Just beyond it. They help us walk our edges a little bit. That's not fear. It's just like, unknown, right? And so then let's do another practice. What does a no feel like in your body? So I'm imagining it feels dead, heavy,
Loaded,
bloated, constrictive, just like wah, wah. Okay. This is the key to feeling into what you're truly available for and being in devotion to that above all. And this will heal your nervous system burnout, and it will also support you so that it doesn't happen again, even in this work, even in this feminine work, right? It's always up to us to feel like what we're truly available for. And if we need to slow down, to just slow down. We all go way too fast. So hopefully that's helpful. I think that was Lynn that asked, was it?
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And I want to get to another aspect of it. And the slowing down also is bringing us into the present moment. So as we're getting into new timelines, as we're opening up to experiences that as humanity we haven't experienced before because the consciousness that we're capable of holding, getting into the future brings up more anxiety because as you step out, there's not territory, there's not holds, there's not these paths that have been laid out that we can grapple onto. So that unknown is causing a lot of a lot of wires to get fried when people, as they grapple to hold on to something that isn't quite there because we're building it as we're going right now. So from the esoteric perspective, we've got these energies of love, of compassion, of acceptance, that are really the new foundations. But the way that we're building with those structures are really not based on paradigms that collectively we've learned how to hold on to and construct from. And the rewiring is the slowing down process is part of that rewiring process, because in that we also get to know ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's deep what's happening in that. Something that you mentioned, and it comes up in the special offer, and there's two sides of this, because there was one side of self-love, then there's a lot of talk about this in the past in the personal development and spiritual community. It's about self-love, it's about sovereignty, but it was very one-sided. It's my self-love, my sovereignty. And okay, beautiful. And the transition, the evolution of that is wonderful. And Steffi talks here about you never have to abandon, forsake, deny, or betray yourself again. And Steffi, and I know in that your experience, and then I'd love to get into this a little bit more, that also means that you never have to abandon, forsake, deny, or betray anybody else either.
Yes. Yes. This is so key because there is a lot of like in some spiritual communities, it's like, well, I'm going to speak my truth, right? But there's a way that that's actually the ego talking.
Right.
And what's true is true for everybody. Because this is, I mean, this is the microcosm and the macrocosm of the multiverse, right? You can always count on the fact 100% that if you are operating in integrity with yourself, per your yeses and your nos and what you're available for, that even if you think the ego's like, well, you're going to disappoint that person and then they're going to be mad at you. No, they're going to feel the inauthentic energy at some unconscious level of you showing up when you're not really available for it. And it's going to breed mistrust. You get to trust that if it's not true for you to be there, as an example, that it's also not true for them, for you to be there. And you, whatever it brings up for them is actually putting them in a power position, right? When you're in what's true, truth brings more truth. So it is absolutely a win-win-win in the world of spirit, no matter what the ego has to say about it.
I love this. I love Lynn's comment here. I think I need to hear someone tell me that it was okay to slow down. And yes, and in this program, in the way Steffi teaches, you're going to hear someone tell you that it's okay to say no. You're going to hear someone say it's okay to be in the force of your dark feminine. You're going to hear someone and embody that it's okay to say, screw off, not now. You're going to hear that it's okay to say, yes, I'm open to love. You're going to hear to say it's okay to open to your sexuality and your sensuality. You're going to hear things that are so in alignment with you that perhaps you've just shut the door down to because you didn't have the reciprocal energy of the truth of what you were holding to tell you that in accordance with who you are and the essence that you be, that it's not only just okay, but Pierina, all of you on this call, that it's the essence, that it's your gift, that it's your divine inheritance, and it's that, again, your service to humanity by being all that you be. What were you going to say, Steffi?
This is so good. And thank you, John. And I will say, I reserve the same right? As your teacher in this process, you can count on me to always be with what's true. And if in very random circumstances, it's not true for me to have a call on a first Friday of the month, I am going to come to you, own it, and only impact and shift it. That's one example. It's probably not going to happen, but do you know what I mean? Like there's a way that I no longer force myself to be on for your satisfaction. And I do that from a power place, because I know whatever's true for me is what brings your power up in you. Right. And so there's not going to be any coddling, though I am going to be very compassionate. It's a different type of container, a different type of teaching than maybe you've been through before. And also there's nothing here where you have to be on any timeline, where you're supposed to be at a certain place in the course at a certain time. There's none of that here. You get to completely honor your cycles within the program. That's how it's designed.
Wonderful. Now, Lynn's asking if the calls are participatory, excuse me.
Yes, very highly. So they're live alchemy calls where you are bringing your stuff to the table. So I'll usually do a little transmission on the energy, whatever I'm feeling in that, what's true for that month, and, kind of calling through that into the call. So there's like sort of a foundational stage set. And then I invite whoever has anything going on to share wherever you're feeling stuck, sort of like what Courtney did, right? And Purina and Lynn, wherever you're feeling stuck. And we actually do live pattern dismantling work on the call so that you clear it while we're together.
Wonderful. All right, Lynn, there you go. And going deeper into what the course provides, and again, the permission that it grants and the activations that are there in that. Again, the link for the course for the special offer is in the chat box. Again, it's $111. There's a 2 payment option. This is typically $111 a month, and you're getting 4 months for $111. So again, it's our gift to you for being a participant on Beyond the Ordinary, for being part of our community here. So definitely take advantage of it. We'll also send the replay link out to today's call a little bit later in the email. So watch out for that. And you can always access the replay of this call by going to beyondtheordinaryshow.com/replay. All right, Steffi, as we're winding up tonight's call, as you've gone through this transition over the last 7 months, and you've opened up into this place of more self-awareness, self-love, and really this sovereignty that softens you. What is it that you look forward to from this space?
I mean, I can't even tell you the sense that I have of possibility. It's like truly anything is possible. And what's been so beautiful about this work beyond anything, and this kind of speaks to what Lynn was asking too, is like when you begin to honor what your nervous system has the capacity to hold, and then you're in your yes, like I said, right? It pushes you a little, but just as much as you can hold, your nervous system capacity grows. And it's able to hold more and more and more. And so for me to be able to be in this next round of roar from this really expanded holding place, even clearer in my channel, even, with more pure liberated life force energy running through me, that's pretty exciting. Like I'm really looking forward to what this next portal brings us through. And to more than anything, if you're attracted to this program, it's because you hold the codes of power within you. And so for you to be able to start to feel what that power running through your system feels like, and how it too begins to grow your capacity to hold more and more, create more, receive more, create more, receive more. I can't wait to be a witness to it.
That's so beautiful. I'm excited for everybody participating. I'm excited for everybody who's listening to the call and what you're receiving in this, because the metamorphosis that Steffi has gone from 1111, that gateway that she was on last time on BTO, into this call the day after summer solstice, and what's awakening there. again, we've had similar trajectories as really repatterning how we were creating and a new version, a new emanation, and birthing new possibilities through this transition. It's like, what's awakening now? So even if you guys keep, and I hope that you do, keep following Steffi on these journeys and what's evolving, again, she's a way shower, not just a guide who's telling you. It's an embodied experience that's coming through. And so the authenticity of the experiences through Stephanie's unique perspective and the way that she can teach and lead you through this, I think is invaluable. And again, I'm excited to have you here tonight, Steffi, to be able to share the wisdom, again, that you've just really have blossomed through, and that you have the opportunity to only share on tonight's call, but also to take it deeper through the special offer. So thank you for what you're doing and your commitment to sharing that truth with other people.
It's a privilege. Sorry, my mom is texting me. I don't know how to turn the notifications off. So I'm not blowing up your ears.
Oh, hugs to your mom.
Well, thank you. She would love that. She was with us at our first call all the way through, John. So,
yeah.
And what a remarkable difference even coming on this call today versus the very first one, because of the work that I've done, where it was like, I was so in trust showing up tonight, not a moment's fear or hesitation. It was just like, I know that whatever needs to come through tonight will, and whoever this is for will hear the call.
Absolutely. I love what Anne just shared. Thank you so much for all that was shared. My heart is opening and hearing the call. I've been throughout the call. So I've signed up. So more people are signing up. Y'all, this is a fantastic community that's signing up for this. And y'all know the BTO community is just, it's, you know who you are, who you've been participating in, and you know what you hold in consciousness. And so to be with a group of peers through this process, it's just, I can't wait to hear about the experiences. So again, thank you, all of y'all, for the space that you hold, the hearts that you are, and that you love, the love that you exhibit through that. It's such an honor to witness it and to receive it. And I look forward to the expansion of that, because I just want to love you in a similar way and see that possibility expanding through these calls, through the teachers that we bring on, and through your commitment of your devotion that is emanating as your heart continues to expand. So I bow down to each of you and namaste. And with that, wish you a fantastic evening. Steffi, thank you so much. And I'll see y'all on the next call. Good night.